Sorry, I was a few minutes late, but I was the other end of the M11 and funds getting paid. So, welcome to the Hilton Parish Council annual parish meeting, Tuesday the 19th of May. So, as it says on the agenda, this is an open meeting that gives residents of Hilton the opportunity to raise to the Parish Council any matter of interest from within the village. Anyone registered on the Electoral Role is welcome to attend and speak. We have guest speakers, including Rebecca from Cambridge Council.
Police and Crime Commission.
Police and Crime Commission. Thank you. Councillor Ian Bates, Ken Harris is going to give us an update on Neighbourhood Watch. Bill is.
Yes, we did accept our invitation.
Yeah, he made it. Yeah, there'll be a report from the A14 working group, Green Spaces group, although when we come on to the next item, which is apologies, unfortunately Kieran can't be here this evening, but he has sent in his report, so I think Graham's going to read that out for us. Is that right? Yes. Thank you. And then right at the end there's a general question time. So thank you very much. I'm going to head off and on. So for some strange reason, the minutes of the meeting last year are unconfirmed. And looking back in the minute book, this happens each year with the annual, or has happened in the past with this meeting, but the minutes are approved at the next annual meeting. So we're going to propose that we actually get the minutes out at the next Parish Council meeting. The one after, yes. Yes, because the next one is on the 1st of June. So they'll be at the July Parish Council meeting, we'll get them approved. So I did send out to the councillors the minutes of the last meeting, what Joe did. And you've all read them? Mm-hmm. Andrew, you can't come because you weren't at the meeting.
I'm assuming I don't.
It may have come out before you were on. So, if you're all happy with those, I'd like to propose that they are accepted.
Second.
Thank you, Jasper. All those in favour? Yeah. Thank you very much. So that will get that, and we'll sort that out so it's a bit better than produced earlier. It's one of those things you think, oh, why haven't we done that? So first on the agenda then is District and County Councillor Ian Bates is going to give us a responsibilities from Cambridge County Council, it says on the agenda. So Ian,
okay. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Come forward.
Please do. Would you like a chair?
No, sure.
Grab one.
I've actually done a handout, which I thought might be useful, but looking at how many is here, you might have to share. Okay. So if you'd like to perhaps pass them around a little bit, and if you don't mind sharing, it'd be much appreciated. Okay. So those are facts and figures. Okay. So they're all about information about what Cambridge County Council does. But I was going to start from a slightly different point of view, which actually is how many councillors there are. Okay. Oh, if I've got a spare one, that's lovely. There are 69 councillors. Now they cover from places to Wisbeach in the north, right on the border with Kings Lynn and Norfolk, down towards Northamptonshire, so all the way over to Northamptonshire, Suffolk, Norfolk, and in the south, Essex and Hertfordshire. So the geographical area is very, very large. Now, I have to write it down because I don't remember all the... And the 69 are made up of 7 Labour councillors, 4 independents, 11 at the UKIP, 13 Liberal Democrats, and 35 Conservatives. Now, those that have got quick arithmetics, that makes no political overall control. Some councils will have political leadership through a cabinet system. We have a committee system. So there is no, Cambridge County Council is in no overall political control. That's not unusual, and you're kind of around the country, there'll be a mixture depending on where you are. So we have a committee structure. That committee structure meets, full council meets 7 or 8 times a year. It's all filmed, so you can actually watch it. It starts about 10:30, on average finishes, if I'm lucky, at about 4. We have a break for lunch, you'll be glad to know. And things that happen there, most strategic really, is setting of the budget in February. The others are all committees. There are 6 committees. Health, it's pretty obvious. Adults, children and young people, highways and communities, environment and economy, and the obvious one, which doesn't fit into any of those, is the General Purposes Committee. So all of those have their own budget, their own, if you like, their staff. There is a chairman, a vice chairman, who will be not of the same party. So the chairman and the vice chairman will be of different parties. They're all politically balanced, and there are 13 members on each committee. Depends on which one you're on as to how often we meet, but on average it's every month. All the papers are publicly available, they're all on the website. You're most welcome to read them. I brought along the General Purposes, which was this morning, just to explain the General Purposes Committee. That's what I call mops up everything that doesn't fit into all those others, neat, if you like, grouping. That covers things like back office, IT, finance, legal, and this is a shared services with Northamptonshire County Council. So Cambridgeshire County Council, along with Northampton, all of its back offices are shared with Northampton. So we don't have 2 legal heads, we don't have 2 heads of anything. So that is shared. That has saved us a lot of money, and that's run as a joint committee. Now, I also brought along our little card, which I keep in my office, of all the committees. So what I've explained to you is what we call the service committees. There are lots of other committees, like planning. Cambridge County Council deals with all planning matters which are the minerals and waste. So if you've got minerals and waste, that comes under County Council. It does not deal with the things that Huntingdonshire District Council. So there's a clear separation between the two. So it also has audit and committee, it has a constitution committee, it has an ethics committee, it has lots of other joint committees as well, with, as an example, South Cambs District Council, in respect of Northstowe, the southern fringes around Cambridge. Those are joint committees where it is shared, some members from that particular authority, whether it's South Cambs or with the city, and some are from the County Council. So I've got a question actually. We have a big budget. All that is also on the website. That is our budget book, which you're most welcome to peruse if you wish, if you're sad one evening. It's divided very simply into revenue and capital. It's not complex, it's pretty standard stuff throughout. So if you went to Essex, you'd see much the same sort of documentation. If you went to Yorkshire, you'd see much the same documentation. This is a growing county. It has a lot of growth. I wonder if you just have a guess which, on a capital sense, which is the biggest consumer of capital projects? Anybody want to have a stab?
Kids.
Education. Thank you. Schools. To build a primary school is about 10 to 11 million. To build a secondary school is about 40, give or take. So our biggest programme in capital expense is actually building schools. A lot of those schools, of course, particularly in the secondary sector, are academies now, but we have a duty to provide people education and schools. So when you're building a new community, wherever that community is, you have to actually look at what the infrastructure, and the biggest infrastructure actually is schools from the county. Often it comes through Section 106. For those that don't know, Section 106, that's a legal agreement which is drawn up through the developer. Anybody like to have a guess as to how much 106 money comes in for every house that's built? Think of a figure. Have a guess. For every house that's built, not affordable housing, but for ordinary housing, there's a figure which is negotiated, it's a legal agreement, which brings in money to both the county and to the district.
2%? 2%?
I was thinking of a figure, Margaret, so think of a figure. Anybody have a guess?
5,000. 5,000.
Up?
Ooh.
15? Up?
Ooh.
Okay. It's roughly about 22,000 comes from the developer when you're building homes. That is negotiated, and it does also depend very much on the land value, because the land values in the middle of Cambridge are slightly different if you happen to be in Whittlesea, okay, where the land values are not the same. But on average, around this sort of area, it's £22,000 roughly that goes in from the developer who pays the counties and the district to predominantly for the county build schools. We offset that through borrowing. So we borrow money, which is at very good rates, to actually what I call fill that gap. We get money from the Department of Education, we get money from the developer, but we also have to borrow to build schools. So I've got some of those facts and figures. Now, some of them maybe you may know quite well. I was only going to point out one or two, give you an opportunity to have a look and ask questions about what's here. Some of the surprising, which won't be a surprise, we're all growing older. I'm most grateful for that. Okay, and it's very good, but it does come with its pressure, because a lot more people, therefore, require possibly care, particularly when they get over 85 or towards 90. We have a very clear responsibility to protect vulnerable people, and the most children, young children. So if you look on page 2, sorry, not one of the surprising figures there is about halfway down, looked after children in care. 500 at any one time. So 500 children in this county I am the parent of. I have a legal responsibility to look after those children. Can't get away from it, and that's often a surprising sort of figure. We have a lot of parents who actually do look after children when they come into care, and they look after them and foster them, but a lot end up in residential type accommodation. Now, some people find that disturbing. I don't know what it is, particularly in Essex or other places, but actually that's a surprising figure to a lot of people, that there is that number of children who are looked after. They're often children that come from some disadvantages, often breakdowns in the family unit or not, and it covers a multitude of what I call of why they are in care in the first place. So that's one of the things. If you look about some of the figures in respect of how many hours we provide of care, how many people are who are cared for in their own homes, for most people, the last thing they want to do is leave their home. What they want to be is cared for in their own home, so that's about care packages. Now that's where the NHS comes in, because a lot of care can be given by the NHS, but it also can be given what you might call by social services. So we do have a lot of packages which are actually joint, working with the NHS, hence one of the important areas is health. We now have public health, that's been transferred out of the NHS back into Cambridgeshire County Council. Now the one thing I can guarantee you, you particularly look at the budget, and that's on page 1, when you look at some of the figures of how much we have to reduce our budget by, okay, there are quite some very heavy figures there. We're not alone. That applies equally to all the other type of authorities in the country, including districts. Districts have a better opportunity because they do have revenue from things like car parking, leisure centres, planning applications, etc. The income for districts is considerably better. There is very little opportunity in the county to actually have income. So the amount we have to save, if you look about over what we've got to save, it's about 119 million over the next couple of years. That means a lot of change. So the one thing I can guarantee is the same. It will have to change. We will not have that money to provide all the services that we would all wish. Which brings on, I think, the next question, which is where does it go? So what very much the county are looking at now is about not what the county can do for you, community, what the community can do for itself. So in the future you will find, I think, a big change will happen over the next 5 or 6 years. So we're not unique, and we've done a lot of work in respect of trying to save a lot of money. We saved about 33 million last year. Interesting, you worked for the Police Commission. I was on the Police Authority for many, many years. And we have, of course, a very low rate in this county, believe it or not. I mean, although we don't have a lot of crime, we don't have a lot of crime in the villages. Just to briefly finish, the areas that I represent: Hilton, Fenstanton, Hemmingford Grey, Hemmingford Abbots and Houghton and Witton. And there is me for roughly about 8,000 population. They're going to reduce the number from the current 79 to 61, so the area is liable to get bigger, and therefore that will be a change over the next couple of years. That is out for consultation. I have seen it, and this particular division is not changing in its geographical area. The reason for that actually is because of development. Quite a lot of development in my area. The biggest one you all know is on London Road, the Yes development, and also over on Houghton and Witton. So you've got lots of population which is coming into my patch, which, if you like, makes this particular area as a no change. Lots of other areas will change, both in the city, South Cambs, Fenland and East Cambs. I'm going to stop there. I'm sure you've got other things to talk about. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Quick, what's the total budget here? You've got all the savings, but what's that savings
just
on?
Just under 800 million.
800 million.
Yeah, just under.
Where are the,
Sorry, yeah.
where are the deprived areas?
Deprived areas, Fenland.
Mm.
If you look at, to give a good example, we all schools in Fenland, all the secondary schools are all brand new, all of them in the Fenland area. That is where there are areas of deprivation on the indices that we have to work with. It's also about achievement in educational terms as well. So for instance in Wisbech we have a project there which is being supported by the private sector, Anglia Water actually. Okay, we're working with Anglia Water in Wisbech, and that certainly is one of the areas. It's not the only area, and there are pockets in the city, some divisions in the city, and there's some divisions in Huntingdonshire. They're not, and sometimes also when people look at the stats, you have to put them together. That doesn't mean there isn't pockets within small communities. So if you have isolated communities which don't hit the target for collecting of statistics, they can still be isolated, they can still have some problems in rural communities, but they're not defined as deprived because they don't have a critical mass.
And do the figures, what we call them figures, collate with the children who are in care? So do they tend to...
No, they do not.
Okay,
no, they do not. You will find children that go in care across all social areas. It is not confined to any one particular area. It goes across the board. Sorry.
And I was just wondering how much it would save if the proposed number of reduced councillors was at that level, but is that a substantial saving financially?
No, it's a simple answer.
No. But presumably
it will be a saving. It will be a saving. Yes. I get an allowance. So, for instance, the same as all councillors for all divisions. forget how much it is. It's roughly, I think it's something like 7, 8 a year. If you are a chairman or a vice chairman, have some special responsibility, you get more, but you're expected to put more in. So, for instance, I go to Cambridge. I got a phone call tonight at about 5 o'clock from Steve Count, who's the leader, to say I'm going to London tomorrow to see a minister. So I do all sorts of things, not only internally, but I also do things outside of the area. I'll give you a good example. I'm currently the chairman of the project for East West Rail. Now, for most of you, you may not quite know where that is, but that's Oxford to Cambridge. At the moment, the project is advanced from Oxford to Bedford, and they're building it. They want to actually go from Bedford to Cambridge. So I'm actually chair that cross organisation, so there's Bedford, Luton, Central Beds, also Cambridgeshire, trying to think who else, Norfolk and Suffolk are both there. Reason being, once you get to Cambridge, of course, you can go to Norwich and to into Ipswich. So both those two authorities are quite keen to see what happens after Cambridge and what it might do for their area as well. Remember, they're a very rural area. So I'm on lots of other things. I'm on the Elconbury Enterprise Zone as well. So I have lots of other things outside of the council itself, along with all the others, by the way. I'm not different. It's the same for people. I chair one of the committees. So I chair the Economy and Environment Committee. So, for instance, you've got AstraZeneca coming, with the Biomedical Centre coming. That's their global headquarters. Now, when you look at that Cambridge, and Cambridgeshire, AstraZeneca could have gone to China, because it's their world headquarters they're bringing. That's about 2,000 jobs. So that brings with it the challenge of education and providing schools, about rail. So, to give you another example, currently working on a rail link between Wisbech, large town, has no station, and I'm working at them currently with central government between Wisbech to March. Then, if you look about that actually would help enormously with people, for instance, about cost of accommodation. To buy a house in Cambridge, we all know, very expensive. The further out you go, the cheaper it is. So all those factors come into the role that I do along with my other colleagues.
Any other questions for Ian? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda then is annual review of the Parish Council business. I'm to take my glasses up to be able to read this. So, as you know, the current Parish Council was formed in July 2013 following the election, and during the past year Stephen White moved away from the village and resigned, and Andrew has recently joined us. You will have seen maybe from the notice boards that there is now a further vacancy on the council following the recent resignation of Doreen. I'd like just to thank Doreen for all her hard work and contributions to the council, especially with the emergency flood plans, the fireworks and the green management group. Thank you, Doreen. And we hope that you'll consider continuing being part of the relevant working groups as a parishioner member. At the recent annual Parish Council meeting on the 5th of May, myself and Graham Barradell were re-elected Chairman and Vice Chairman for the coming period, and I'd like to thank Graham obviously for his continued support over the last 12 months. He was on the Parish Council a few years ago as Chair and gives me invaluable help when I get stuck on things. Over the year we saw the crossing on Potton Road, that was completed. That was originally agreed in 2012 under a matching finance scheme offered by Cambridge County Council, and a little bit of ironing out, and it was agreed that our contribution was a maximum of £10,000. The first part of that has been paid. We have an agreement to pay it over 3 years. So £3,334 was paid this year, or in this financial year just gone, and there'll be a further contribution in this current financial year and next year. PC 21, that was an outstanding item for business last year. That was taken out. We had a little bit of a debate with Balfour Beatty about the road closure. We'd like to thank Mrs. Collar for pointing out that they didn't close the road as advertised, and Joe for persisting with Balfour Beatty, and it's probably in the finance report, but there is a little bit of reduction in the price.
£1,500.
Well, it's £1,258 plus that, isn't it? So, which is good news. So thank you, Joe. Joe was just about joined the Parish Council last year, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. And has done very well over this year. Thank you very much. You've taken to the task. Well, it's a difficult one because the hours are 10 per week, and just don't coughs and splutters. Would you debate that? So, and I know Joe's very flexible in trying to respond to periods of time when the workload is high, and that's very much appreciated. Thank you, Joe. We benefited from having a clerk who lives in the village, definitely over the last year. She's got a difficult job. It includes being proper officer and a financial officer, and as proper officer she has to strive to make sure the council and its councillors adhere to the strict governance issues surrounding how a parish council must operate. Parish council has responsibilities. It's responsible for some of the street lighting, for those out on a dark evening, the yellow lights, not the white lights. We dealt with last year. The maintenance of ponds, ditches, trees and grass cutting. Over the last year, I'd like to thank, or the Parish Council would like to thank, John Carter, Bernie Ashby, Rodney Macomb and Duncan McMichael for all the work they've done over the last year to keep the village maintained to a high standard. The open spaces, trees and ditches. In the last year we had a little bit of change in direction. For the first time this year, Atlas tree surgeons were appointed following tender to carry out the work on tree maintenance, and I think they did a really good job. They had an extremely difficult job in removing the tree across farm, the pond across farm close. I think they did it particularly well. Another responsibility of the Parish Council is to make recommendations to Huntingdon District Council on planning applications via the Planning Committee. We do, of course, we don't make any decisions, we can only make recommendations or observations. Fireworks continues to be a very popular event in the village, and this year, thank you to the Firework Committee and the volunteers who came forward and helped us man the doors. It was an excellent display. Takings were considerably up on the previous year, and thanks to the generosity of Feast Week with a donation, there was a small surplus of £73. The working group have come up with proposals, and we discussed that at a Parish Council meeting earlier in the year, and in the past, what's the rule of thumb has sort of been the amount that was taken at the gate is spent on fireworks in the coming year, but we have suggested that's a 10% reduction in that as a buffer for lack of takings, or should it be a rainy night? And hopefully that will allow the fireworks to continue over the future years. There was a bit of a question mark around it after, not this one just gone, but the one before. And of course, the actual bonfire site was cleared up very quickly this year, so thank you to everybody who was involved in that. I'll do that bit last, because that's more important. The football pitch on green continues to be used by the Fenstanton Youth Football Club, and we hope that this and Hilton, children from Hilton are involved, I believe. We hope we can continue this into the new season. Discussions ongoing with the club and talking about rotating the football pitch and making sure that the grass isn't damaged beyond, so that it's not repairable. Green Management Group has worked hard in helping to maintain that over the year. They're also responsible for other bits around the village, like watercourses, ponds. And Ian Stott continues to work very closely with them. Thank you, Ian, for that, because I know you've got a wealth of knowledge about which blade of grass is on the green in that particular place all the time. I did a report years ago, didn't we? A few years ago. Thank you. The new A14 route has moved forward with a scheme now with the planning inspector, and on the 13th of May there was a preliminary meeting held at in Huntingdon. That meeting was a lot about the process. The planning inspector, there are three were present at the meeting, and they advised us that the 6-month examination period would commence on the 14th of May. I think we had confirmation today, did we, Jane, that there will be an open floor meeting in Hilton on the 13th of July. I think we have.
She hasn't confirmed with you yet. She said
Has she
she's
not?
going to know.
Oh, right.
She did say today.
All right, so that's still open. So as soon as we have full details of when that meeting is going to take place, we will advise people in the village, because you will be able to speak at the village, but you have to register to speak. There will be, at the meeting, there's a Rule 8 letter that's going to come out, and I think that's going to come out by Thursday this week, which will set out the process, the timetable, and suggestions of detail of how you'll be able to register with the planning inspector to be able to speak at meetings. There's an accompanied site visit that they are proposing to undertake across the route. And I'm probably straying into the A14 up to date, aren't I? Yes, I'll shut up. That's all right. That's right. But what we will do as Parish Council, when we have the full detail, we will be delivering to each household a flyer, asking people to take an interest, to register, because obviously I had a word with the programme manager or the plan manager after the meeting, and he said they were coming to Hilton because they were aware of the sentiment within the village from the large number of people who had registered as interested parties. So the response to the great response from the village is that they'll come to Hilton and hopefully meet with the villagers. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank all the members of the Parish Council, Hilton Parish Council, for their hard work and time in serving the village throughout the last year, and to welcome Andrew on the council. I look forward to welcoming a new councillor in due course. I think that everybody's worked very hard and very well together on the various aspects in the last year, and work done by the various working groups between Parish Council meetings does allow, or help to allow, informed decisions to be made at the meetings. There we are. There's the update on good time, Joe, to do the financial report. That's not a problem. Moving swiftly on to the financial report. The figures that I have are draft at the moment. They're currently with our internal auditor. And the process is they go through the internal auditor, they come to the Parish Council meeting, hopefully on the 1st of June, to be approved, and then they're sent to the external auditor by the 9th of June. The 8th of June, isn't it? It was the 9th of June last year. I couldn't find the document when I was looking at that. So, in the year ended the 31st of March 2015, our precept was £23,047. Excluding other income and the fireworks, our expenditure was £23,067. And within that year, there was an additional unexpected piece of expenditure for repairs to the car park, the Parish Council's car park, which the Town Trust kindly donated to. The overall cost was £744, £250 from the Town Trust. So if you can see that I think, when I was writing this, I was thinking of a word that came into my mind was prudence. We heard Chancellor Gordon Brown used that word a lot in the past, and I thought that was fairly apt, that we were fairly close. We did have our income. The fireworks with the donation from Feast Week came to £1,763. The fireworks expenditure was £1,700. We had other income come in from the Fenstanton Youth Club, and there were some contributions to utilities during Feast Week, sale of maps, a little bit of refund on electricity. So we had a total income of £25,882 and expenditure of £24,767, so a surplus of £1,115. On top of this, we then paid out £3,334 as the first instalment on the crossing, with the further similar sums to be paid in the next 2 financial years. As we mentioned last year, the cost of the crossing was to come from Parish Council reserves. There was also the item of removing PC21, which is the street light, and that was going to be a cost of up to £3,171 plus VAT, but following the comments I made earlier, the reduction in the non-road closure is a refund of £1,258 plus VAT, leaving a net figure of £1,900 to pay. That will also come out of reserves. So at the beginning of the year, the Parish Council had £29,239. At the end of the year, it had £27,823, on top of which there are those items still to be paid, so £6,660.66 for the crossing, and a further £1,900 for the street light. £800 has been put aside for the cost of the possible future election. So that leaves the general reserves at £18,445. For the next year, the precept was agreed by Huntingdon District Council at £27,070. This increase will allow the Parish Council to undertake an increased amount of tree maintenance to keep the village safe, attend to some extra work on some of the ditches and ponds around the village, and start providing for some of the work that will come up in the future, such as repairs to the car park, the wooden bridges, the maze, work on Sparrow Way Thicket. Now that was originally costed about £800, but will probably be a 3-year project. It's down there. As I said earlier, the internal audit should be completed hopefully soon, with the accounts to be formally approved at the meeting on the 1st of June, at which time we will then publish the accounts because they have to go into the minutes of the meeting. That is it on the finances. There isn't a lot to play with, but I think we've managed to. We know that of the £23,000 precept there is a set amount that is just committed expenditure, like the maintenance of the maintenance contract we have, the insurance that we have to pay, the clerk's salary. There's not a lot left in the pot after the fixed overheads are made. So the increase in the precept will allow a bit of manoeuvre for some of the extra work that will come up. Like I noticed the bridge going across this little part of the green here has got one of the slats is a bit ropey at the moment. So that's a review of the financial report. Next is Rebecca. So thank you very much, Rebecca. Rebecca is an outreach worker serving the south of Cambridgeshire. Would you like to sit there?
That's fine, I'll stand. Well, thank you very much for having me, and it's nice to see such a well-attended Parish Council meeting, actually. So, yes. By the time I get Mount Car and Tool off back to St Ives, I hope that I would have given you an idea of what the Police and Crime Commission does, for those of you that don't know, what our kind of purpose, what our strategy, and an overview of what policing, or what we want policing to look like in Cambridgeshire, and hopefully also to have given you an insight into what my role is and what I can do for you. So I'm going to talk. I've been rushing around all day. So if I'm going quick and I'm still rushing, then tell me, please. And I think most important and probably most fun actually is to kind of leave lots of time at the end for questions. So, you know, there's no such thing as a stupid question and all that. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. I'm going to look around the room for reactions. Does everybody in the room know who Sir Graham Bright is and what the role of the Police and Crime Commissioner is? Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. So Police and Crime Commissioners, they were brought in by legislation, the Social Responsibility Act 2011. There was a public election and Sir Graham took office in November 2012, and essentially his role encompasses the functions of, he's in charge of the police budget. His role is to hold the police to account in, you know, the overarching governance function, and also to set local policing strategy. So what that looks like in practice is the police and crime plan. Again, I'm not expecting all of you, if anyone, to have read it. It's a public accessible document, and kind of everything I'm going to tell you is from that. If you want to know more detail, please feel free to access it on our website. But what that encompasses is a set of objectives that Sir Graham has laid out. Well, and it's what he wants the police to kind of address as they go about their kind of policing. And I have to say, actually, a lot of the themes that you're going to hear, a lot of recurring themes, actually, similar challenges that we've faced to what your county council are facing as well, in terms of saving money, in terms of, you know, focusing on vulnerable people, and quite a lot of changes kind of that have happened and that will continue to happen. Our focus has been to maintain a local police performance, and, you know, within that deliver policing that you should expect within the available budget. Again, sorry to talk about money. Everyone always talks about money. It's not even a case of we're not spending money. We don't have money to spend. So since the Police and Crime Commissioner came in, we've already had to operate under a budget that's 13.3 million less than it was. We've balanced the books for this year. Next financial year, we're looking at another £8.2 million reduction in the budget that we've got. It's only going to get harder, the money's only going to get less. So what do we do with that budget, and what do we do to make sure that people are still feeling safe in Cambridgeshire? So the work that we've been doing, it's all around the best use of resources, things like that. So again, collaborations and back office functions. Similarly, so a couple of headlines yesterday actually that we are increasingly collaborating with Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire police forces. So things like the road traffic unit, dog unit, HR and support services, to name just a few. Idea is, save money, long-term outcomes. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that whatever the money the police have a function, they need to be fulfilling that function. Police visibility is a concern that's raised quite a lot. So money has been invested in giving police best technology that allows them to be out and about, that allows them to be visible. Pilots, they did one in Peterborough actually, where they blocked the police out of the police station for the whole day, gave them their technology, and they actually saw kind of increases 25% to 30% improvement. Rather than being police stations and filling in forms for hours on end, they were parking up in parks, they were parking up in travel spots, and just the police cars being there, you know, they seem to have quite a positive impact by residents. Maintaining local police performance is kind of one of the named objectives. So in doing that, best use of resources. So I've already mentioned technology, but also quite an increased use of volunteers, and there's been a real change of focus. So when you haven't got any money, you have to deliver, because you haven't got money to throw at the problem to make it go away. So it's the acknowledgement that there's a lot of people that want to take an active role in the community, in their police force, in their police service, should I say. So it's trying to incorporate all of that. So big recruitment drive for more special constabulary members, for police service volunteers, trying to take a renewed focus and kind of reinvigoration, speed watch schemes, neighbourhood watch schemes. I'm very happy to see there's a neighbourhood watch report on your parish agenda, things like that. Police cadets as well, so that's kind of got two functions. We talked about identifying vulnerable areas. What we've tried to use the schemes for is to identify areas where kids are maybe at risk of becoming victims of crime or kind of falling into a life of crime. So in those areas we've set up cadet schemes. The idea is to promote active citizenship and provide that area with a force of 25 to 30 young people who can go out and about and can actually help service the community and the most vulnerable people, so they can deliver things like safety advice, litter picks, just generally knocking on doors. There's actually a lot of power in having people in a community to say hello or to have an acknowledgement that there's people that are lonely, and the positive impact that kind of caring and going out will do. And also, a lot of the time, young people don't always get the best reputation one way or another, so it's nice to have this group of enthusiastic kind of youths to try and change that perception across the county. I don't know what more to kind of tell you about the budget. I think we've already kind of discussed that. The only thing that I will say, and please do come talk to me at the end if this raises any light bulbs in anyone's head, is we do have an unallocated pot of money that we want to spend on youths, young people initiatives. So bids can come into that for anything. Grants between £200 to £2,500. It can be if you've already got a well-established community group that would like to fund maybe a residential trip. You have some areas of deprivation, unfortunately this area, well not unfortunately, but you know what I mean, this isn't one of them, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't still put in a bid for consideration. The process of going through the bids and deciding where money will go and who will give it to is coming up quite soon, so if you could get that in, that would be great. In continuing to tackle crime and disorder and keeping people safe, those two are quite interlinked. So continuing to tackle crime and disorder, on the surface of it, it's quite simple, it's quite straightforward. But actually within that, it's the acknowledgement that there's different types of crime, different communities have different problems. Rural crime is quite a big issue that I've really tried to bring to the fore since coming into this role. At the same time, cities, Peterborough, Cambridge City, completely different, focus maybe more on alcohol-related violent crime, things like that. So it's trying to tailor the local approach and the perceptions locally, what actually it means to be policing efficiently. If you're in Cambridge City Centre, you probably don't care about hair coursing in East Cambridge or somewhere. And again, yeah, keeping people safe, so that's going back. We're really trying to focus on the grassroots. Why do people commit crime? So rather than just being reactive, what can we do at the very bottom level? So integrated offender management, things that try and stop reoffending, diversionary schemes trying to stop young people going into crime. What are areas missing? Why are some areas more prevalent to criminal activity, criminal behaviour? Why, if we've got people committing crime in those areas, what can we do to try and solve it? What services do we need to be providing? And actually, having been out with the police, I have been quite, and also being new to the police for this role, I should add, I've been quite amazed actually at the role of the police, and a lot of it is kind of welfare concerns, a lot of it is, you know, knocking on doors of people that might be more vulnerable to drug dealing and influences, trying to make sure they're all right and trying to keep kind of people away from them and keep an idea of what's going on in the community and things like that. Maintaining the resilience of the protective services is the final objective that Sir Graham's outlined. I think the headlines kind of say it all. A lot of work on the prevent agenda, I'm not sure if you're aware, but it is now a statutory obligation for local authorities and public services to show that they are doing something to actively try and curb extremism and people kind of being guided down that point. So we've recently done training, and happy to give kind of a bit more of an input there, but it is something that is very much, not just in terms of Al-Qaeda and what's going on in Syria, but we're looking at more right-wing extremism and places like that. So yeah, so that's all my waffle done on that. Why am I here? Right, so the main thing to kind of point out about all of that is this policing and crime plan is constantly evolving, and at the very centre of that, in fact, it's completely pointless if all the things we're doing there are not achieving the ultimate aim, which is to make sure that people in Cambridgeshire feel safe. So how do we know you feel safe where you live? Well, we go out and ask you. So it's quite a big area, as anyone has said, Graham, and so my role is to come out and about, to be kind of a contact to you, to come to Parish Council meetings. If you've got issues, you know, put them to me so I can address them, I can liaise with the police, and just anything that you need really, feedback from yourselves. What can we do to make your community feel safer? What are your overarching concerns? If you've got any suggestions, things like that, it all gets fed back to Sir Graham directly, it gets fed back to the police directly, and any organisations as well, voluntary organisations, anything like that that you are a part of or that you have an interest in, very much I'd like to know that information, because you guys are capable of coming to a parish council meeting, and you know, I'm sure you'd write to me if you were angry enough about something. There's lots of people that for one reason or another they wouldn't come out in public necessarily. They've got issues and things which mean that they wouldn't go out of the way. Maybe they don't even know. I mean, youth kind of come into that category quite a lot as well. The kind of hidden generation is the 18 to 34-year-old age category. there's not many of them in this meeting. Where are they? What are they doing? Do they feel safe? Things like that. So that's my job, to really kind of get down and out into the nitty-gritty of what's going on, try and get out to where people are. And my name's not Sir, so there's not so much kind of ceremony when I turn up places, which is good because I can go to coffee mornings and things like that. So that's what I'm here for. The first thing that I'm really trying to work on, I've been in post since January, and there does kind of seem to be a gap in the police and our office. We're very good at doing, not so good at telling you what we've done. So how do you know if we've done it, and how can you feel safe? And in the knowledge that we've done all these things, if we don't tell you about it. So actually, and I suppose I'm kind of look at you as well, Jay, it is that feedback from you initially. So do you feel well enough informed? Some people, well, if you ask people if they feel safe, they don't generally say, no, I don't feel safe because I don't see a police officer. They say, I don't feel safe because when I was burgled, this happened. Or they'll tell me a reason they don't feel safe, which actually could, they could be made to feel a lot better if we just told them the information that they need to know, gave them advice on little things that they can do to make themselves feel safe, kind of promoting that, look out for your neighbour, neighbourhood watch, those kind of principles. So any feedback like that, if you've got parish newsletters that you would like me, that you would like the police to contribute to, do you know about ECOPS? Has everybody signed up to ECOPS? Ways that we can use ECOPS, things like that. So ECOPS is an alert system, a localised alert system. If you go on the police website, you can sign up to it, put in your postcode, you will just get alerts from your local policing team. It might be stuff like a shed on this road was burgled at this time today. It might be suspicious van seen in this area, related to another crime that happened yesterday. Have you seen it? Do you have any information? It might just be, summer's coming, have you checked this, have you checked that? And it's also a way you can respond to what the police send out to you. So if you've got feedback, if there's things you'd like to be addressed, then that's another way that you can do it. So, yes. It's a lot to fit in, and it's quite a kind of a quasi role, if that makes sense. But ultimately, I am just here kind of for you to channel feedback to Sir Graham directly, to the police force, and it's just looking at ways that we can all work together, equipping you with the knowledge that you need to be kind of active in your community and keep your community safe. Also acknowledging that there might be some areas that we haven't considered because we didn't know about them, or where the police could be doing better. And it's all about challenging that back and trying to make changes that need to be made, really. So, has anybody got any questions? And I'm more than happy to stay around at the end as well.
Yeah. How do we contact you? Have we got an email address?
Yeah, Joe's got my email. I'll leave some cards as well. My inbox is an open door, if that makes any sense. So anything, just drop me an email.
Oh, lovely. We have Police Week here in July, the first week of school summer holidays, and we do sort of hire security for 2 of the busiest nights, but we usually make the police aware of those dates. So do you want me to drop you an email?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. We do have a police kind of events register which covers as many things as we know about. So I'll double check that that's on there as well, because it's things like it affects roads, doesn't it? And stuff.
Yeah, we have road closures.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Would that be the same for fireworks? Is it the department we have to contact?
No.
Would you be contact for fireworks on our firework night? We're supposed to contact the 3 main services. Would you be a good person to start that?
Yeah, by all
Okay,
means.
back in
Yeah,
October time.
yeah,
Okay,
just
thank
kind
you.
of a second here, can you check?
Yeah. Good.
Yes.
Does the PCC have a sort of formal review process? So getting feedback from the whole of the community of how they think he's doing, and also measure actually how he's doing in post?
Yeah, so Graham, if the public want to come and speak with him directly, you can kind of address your views, opinions of him. He holds surgeries. Again, I'd like to let you know when they ask that you can let anyone else who's interested know. What I should have mentioned is, like they kind of roughly said, the Police and Crime Commission operates police authorities. Every quarter, Sir Graham sits before a police and crime panel. So that has 1 representative from each of the district areas on it, as well as 2 independent members, and they in turn hold the police and crime commissioner to account on what he's been doing. They can request reports from him, it's just kind of information, anything that they want, really.
No, my question's more about us. I know that you can proactively come and talk, but do you survey the whole of the population to say, what do you think the PCC is doing? Is he working for you? that sort of formal review of how well am I doing? Because, as you said, I think in your talk, people don't proactively come out and say things, and you really need to do a proper sort of like a survey of people to find out what they really think.
We do, I mean, there's nothing in the legislature or statutory provisions that kind of put any of that kind of check or balance in place on the Police and Crime Commissioner, so it is down to him to decide how he is going to take checks and have that public consultation. And the way that he does that, he does do it through public meetings, he does do it through correspondence, he does hold open public surgeries and things like that. Every now and again he does do questionnaires and things, but it's not necessarily formal. But I mean, at any time, we're a completely transparent office, so any of the paperwork, if you want to see how we're doing, if you want to see what we're holding the police to account on, all of the BCB papers are there. Business Coordination Board, that's the meeting where Sir Graham sits with the Chief Constable and says, right, what are you doing about X, Y, Z? And it's just kind of general trends as well. So we get one letter about, I'm trying to think of an example, 101, that was a really good example. So came into office and you know, one person mentions 101 and you think, oh, you've just had a bad experience. When 100, 200, 300, in fact, everywhere I go, someone says there's a problem with 101, you kind of get an idea of, oh, hang on a minute. And it's that, okay, please, what does it look like? What are you doing about this? How can we use resources to target it? So it's a continual kind of holding to account and inviting that public consultation, but there isn't a formal, we do this on this date type thing.
Suggestion, you might want to use the alert system, the ECOP system. They've got a huge database of people. Why didn't you just ask everybody what they think? Because actually, the trouble is even with the surgeries, it's only people that turn up with it, and that's not a very representative view of the public, as we know. So it's, you know, those that will get off their bums and come to a meeting or go to a surgery or come and examine are not representative of most people in the community. So
yeah, no, you are absolutely right. I mean, that tends to be the problem that you have actually. So, for instance, you do find that people that do go to the local meetings, that's where I try and come to meetings rather than arrange them myself, because people come with other agendas, not just wanting to hear me speak. And people that come to contact points, we have contact points, again I should mention that, in the local supermarkets. There's one just launched in Camborne, Morrison's. It's open in the evenings and the police are able to serve smart water, got shed alarms, things like that. There's also one that's going to be opened in Huntingdon, Tesco's I believe, there's one in St Neots Tesco's. And as you said, that's kind of trying to get more out to a more varied audience, but only people that want to talk to you will come and talk to you, and that is the problem that we have, and lots of organisations, I'm sure actually parish councils have, is that you've got that very kind of minority.
Well, we've got 1,300 people in the village and 25 people here, so that's a good example of we're not representative of the village.
Yeah, precisely. So it is continually looking at other ways, and that's part of my role, is to try and get away from that. Also, it's quite an ad hoc approach, and I do my investigations and I kind of try and get around about as much as possible. I also have a counterpart in the north. That's kind of the approach at the moment. I'll take that back for sure, because like you said, ECOPS, I think we've got 14,000
yeah, that's good.
followers.
Why not use that? That's a good.
Yes.
Everything you've said about what Graham Bright does, that's what the Chief Constable used to do. And it seems to me that there's an awful lot of spreading the money around to places where it's detracting from policing and giving it to people like him who are basically, they haven't got a clue about policing to start with because they've never done it. And that money would be far better going back to the Chief Constable and allowing him to use that money, because they did it for years. Okay, a lot of people say they didn't do it very well, but I disagree. I think they did a fantastic job. And the thing is, by having these commissioners all over the country, it's probably millions of pounds that are being directed to them instead of being directed to the footfall, where they should be. Police officers should be patrolling these villages, but they never do. You should have people. I was a policeman and I was in London and I used to patrol the area I was given, and you would be amazed the number of people that will stop and talk to you, and the evidence that you can gain might not be relevant. You may not think it's relevant, but the jigsaw all starts to fit together. And I think that's the biggest loss to policing in this country, is the fact you see them whizzing through the place in a car, you never ever see one on foot, you never see one walking round. All that extra little bit of evidence that you could get is lost.
I completely take on board what you're saying, and essentially what you've just opened up is probably a stack of scholarly debates that are probably a lot taller than I am. I mean, the fact that we have police and crime commissioners, it is a higher statutory decision, so Graham didn't decide to become police and crime commissioner one day. The whole point, I suppose, is maintaining that democratic, accountable to the people, pleading in principles, police of the public, public of the police type thing. And there is an argument that if you don't have that body holding the police constable to account, essentially what you've got is a police state. That's not my opinion, that's an argument that's kind of put forward. With regards to what Sir Graham or any police crime commissioner does or doesn't know about policing, the point isn't necessarily that they start the role and they're experts about policing. The point is that they spend time with the public, that they are speaking, that they are challenging the police, what they're doing, taking on board that public view. So actually what the concern is what the public want from the police, and that working with the police and the chief constable to see how we translate that into police strategy and, as I've already said, fulfilling the main objectives, which is keeping people safe. One of the points kind of put forward, and again this isn't my opinion, this is just a point that's been put forward about police and crime commissioners, is the kind of giving a more abstract approach to the governance of police. So you've got all different types of people that are police and crime commissioners. To put yourself forward, you have to have 100 signatures and £5,000. So you've got ex-police, you've got ex-police authority people, you've got ex-Conservative MPs, a real mix. And there's not a handbook that says this is how you will be police and crime commissioner and this is what you do. And this has just been the first time, this is the first ever police and crime commissioner, and it'll be interesting, I think, actually, maybe the success of what they have achieved and their value will be kind of highlighted in how many people turn up at the next election and whether or not what people's opinions are. So I do take on what you're saying, but it is that we've got police and crime commissioners essentially, and they're not going to go anywhere until, unless government makes a decision that they don't want them anymore.
It may help actually to realise that the chief constable has operational control over his force. So if the chief constable thinks he needs to send police from Cambridge to Peterborough, he can. He doesn't need to ask anything, and vice versa. There is a very distinct role. So the chief constable still has those all at his arm. So if he has a problem with anything, essentially something like a murder or something like that, he can direct those resources to it. He doesn't need to ask the police commissioner for approval.
That's reactive though.
Yeah, but he
You've
has
got to
no...
do some proactive as well,
Yeah.
to stop the reactive happening in the first place.
Yeah, I understand that, but all I'm saying is he does have control over operational matters. It's not
The strategy is done by Graham Bright.
Yeah, just to give that some context, I get nervous when we talk about murders and policing and stuff. But essentially, so Graham, I've kind of outlined to you what the strategy is for Cambridgeshire and the headline issues that the Police and Crime Commission wants to address. Underneath that is that process of ongoing public consultation to make sure we are doing the right things and we're actually achieving outcomes, keeping people safe. So Graham can say, as he does say in the Police and Crime Plan, I want you to tackle dwelling burglary. I want to see a decrease over this year in the amount of dwelling burglaries that are taking place. He can't say to Chief Constable Simon Parr, right, I want you to make sure that you have got 5 of your PCs on patrol in this area every single night for this. He can't do things like that. You can say to me, we've got a problem with, young people in your area, for instance, antisocial behaviour. I can take that back and Sir Graham can say, oh, I've had this issue from this, village. But Sir Graham can't say, I've had this issue from this village, I want you to dedicate 2 police officers to the area at all times. So when Joe was first in contact with me about coming and speaking to you tonight, the initial conversation was, can you provide a police update? I'm not the best placed person to do that because crime statistics, the what's, the how's, the who's, that's purely operational. What we are here and what we're looking at is the overarching kind of governance and the overarching strategy. And yeah, so as you very rightly said, it is 2 very distinct functions. So Graham's actually taken an oath that he will not interfere in the operational matters of the police. Does that answer the question?
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you very much indeed. we're going to hear from Ken in a moment about Neighbourhood Watch, and we'd love to invite you to future Parish Council.
Fantastic, thank you.
Well, first of all, I suppose that I should thank Rebecca for fielding those philosophical questions with such charm. No, that's all right. You get me to talk on the subject of Neighbourhood Watch and what Neighbourhood Watch has been up to in the past year. First of all, thank you to Mr. Chairman and councillors. They're all over the place. Thank you for the opportunity to address this meeting. You'll know that a Neighbourhood Watch scheme has existed in Hilton for a number of years. It aims to improve security awareness, to foster good communications between residents and the police, and by improving awareness, to allay undue fear of crime or antisocial behaviour. Those are the words. Neighbourhood Watch in Hilton comprises 18 discrete area schemes. In each area, a coordinator is registered with the police to receive and relay messages between the police and residents. For their part, Cambridge Constabulary provide weekly updates to registered members of the public in the form of emails, which are now termed Neighbourhood Alert messages. To receive the messages, individual residents can register with the ECOPS scheme that you heard Rebecca mention earlier, that is run by Cambridge Constabulary. You follow the links from their website for more information and to apply to join ECOPS. Alternatively, residents who choose to join the local Neighbourhood Watch scheme will receive those same messages. You apply to join your nearest scheme either through the National Neighbourhood and Home Watch Network website or by getting in touch with me. My telephone number is in Spectrum. Registered subscribers to either ECOPS or Neighbourhood Watch will receive weekly Neighbourhood Alert updates about crime or antisocial behaviour in the area and feedback from the neighbourhood policing team about what they're doing to tackle it. In addition, the police sometimes use Neighbourhood Alert to target emails to registered residents living in the vicinity of a reported crime. There is always a chance that this will stimulate residents to contribute something useful. In addition, the Police and Crime Commissioner has advertised job opportunities through Neighbourhood Alert messages. For anyone who doesn't have ready access to the internet, remember that the Area Neighbourhood Coordinator can act as an intermediary. But if anyone has difficulties in this respect, please contact me. My telephone number is in Spectrum. A couple of anecdotes just to illustrate the uses of the Neighbourhood Alert messages. You'll be aware that there were a spate of burglaries in Hilton during autumn of last year. 2 occurred on either side of Councillor Bates' house. I'm not saying that was significant. And I actually came face to face with a bogus pizza delivery man at Kidman's Farm Cottage. In most cases, entry was forced at the rear of a property while the residents were absent. The police did arrest. After collecting information, the police did arrest 2 suspects found going equipped. More recently, officers persuaded a group of cold callers who were entering the area in a van that it would be better for them to leave Huntingdon and go cold calling somewhere else. After these interventions, there was a marked drop in the rate of burglaries, but inevitably the rate increases again over several weeks or months. The message is simple. Residents should take care to keep their properties secure, remain vigilant, and look out for that pizza delivery man. Another type of crime that is causing concern on a continuing basis is fraud or attempted fraud. Telephone calls from bogus policemen, failed delivery postcards from hoax van men, and cloned websites offering anything from Rugby World Cup tickets to 65-plus pensioner bonds. All have the same fundamental aim of separating you from your money, or of obtaining details of your bank accounts, credit cards, debit cards, associated passwords. Action Fraud is the National Reporting Centre for Fraud and Financially Motivated Cybercrime. It's run by the City of London Police, and they now contribute warnings on scams, on scams that have emerged, and related security advice through the Neighbourhood Alert messaging system. In summary, always be wary of contacts that you did not instigate. Either telephone calls, emails, or even cold callers. Register with the telephone preference service to minimise the number of telephone cold calls that you receive. Check out unsolicited telephone callers using a separate telephone line if at all possible. Don't click on links in emails. Type in the URL for the website that you want to visit. Banks and building societies will never ask you for your full security details. They've already got them. If now you need to contact the police, there is no benefit in going through Neighbourhood Watch. Contact the police directly on one of their two numbers, dial 999 for emergency assistance. That's when life or limb is at risk or when criminals might still be in the vicinity. Call 101 where there is no immediate urgency. The Police Operations Centre will assess every call and they will decide the appropriate level of response depending on the circumstances of your call. Now, clearly, the more residents who participate in Neighbourhood Watch, the better. Please identify your area coordinator. Check that he or she has an up-to-date telephone contact number for you. If you need help in this respect, in finding your area coordinator, my telephone number is published. Finally, we do have vacancies for 4 area coordinators in the village. We're a committed equal opportunities organisation. So if you fancy a 0 hours contract, helping to run Neighbourhood Watch in Hilton, call my number. It's published in Spectra. Thank you again for the chance to speak.
Thank you, Kay.
And are there any questions?
I can get your telephone number. Thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
Very much. Next on the list, it's Phil. Can I trust? Would you like to say that? I don't remember between that explanation last.
Okay. Report for the Town Trust charities. As many of you will know, the village benefits from land and assets that have been endowed over the centuries. The most recent form of the charities was determined by a deed which dates back to 1899. And actually the gross yearly income in that year was £41, you'll be pleased to know. We actually operate 2 charities. The estate charity is the senior one of the 2, and it holds the land and the assets. Now the deed that I referred to requires that half of the income from that charity goes to the parish church, which is used for repairs to the building, and the other half then is paid to the second charity, which is the town charity. And that's to be spent for the general benefit of the village. And really it has a very broad remit within that. Both the estate and the town charities are administered by trustees and are chaired by our vicar, the Reverend David Busk. So the Parish Council appoints 2 trustees. Those are presently Brian Ward and Liz Bush. And the church wardens are the other 2 trustees, currently Ralph Slater and Rachel Wood. And I'm the clerk. So in terms of the town charity and the financial report for the last calendar year, at the beginning of the year, the charity had £9,900 in hand, and income for the year was £5,000. Now, the trustees, as it said, have got really quite a broad remit, and it can be, anything from capital grants, education grants, grants to other charities or organisations, providing they specifically serve the needs of Hilton and the residents of Hilton. So during 2014, projects supported by the charity included the Fen Stanton Youth Football Club. There were awards to Hilton residents. There was the Parish Council for the repair of the car park. We're involved with the World War I commemoration, which took place, and our old friend the Christmas hamper distribution. So at the end of the year, the balance in hand was £12,750, and the expected income for 2015 is another £5,000. So there is money in hand at the moment. Now, the trustees remain open to proposals from villagers for either individual needs or community projects. Contact can be made either to myself, any of the trustees, or via the contact number in Hilton, in Spectrum. Currently, you may have seen this, the trust is looking to support, we've had these flyers up for a while, but we're looking to support any villagers who aren't able to use routine public transport, and doing that by funding anyone that wants to take out membership with Huntingdon Association Community Transport. Now, what these people do, there are several schemes that they offer, but one specifically, they run a series of routes from the villages to certain locations during the course of the week. So it may be Morrison's at Camborne, it may be going into St Neots, it may be going to Peterborough. But this is a door-to-door service, so you ring up the day before, they'll come along, collect you from home, take you to there for 2 or 3 hours, back on the bus, and then deliver you back again. So for those people that aren't able to use public transport, actually it's quite beneficial. And for anyone that's in receipt of a bus pass, County Council bus pass, it's free. The only cost is the cost of membership for the year, which the trust will fund this year for the first number of people that join. The organisation also run other schemes, almost effectively like a taxi service, but those things do have a cost associated with them. But when you're a member, you can still sign up to those as required. So I don't expect it applies directly to anybody here, but you may know people around the village that it may apply to. And we have had some applicants already, and I would encourage you to make it as widely known as possible. But it's just an example of what we're trying to do to benefit the village. And that's it, thank you. Unless there's any questions? Yes, please.
I've got a question. I've told somebody about the scheme, and she wanted to use it for today for an appointment to go down to Papworth Hospital. She phoned yesterday in the Pacific time, 24 hours before that she needed it, and was refused.
I'm sorry to hear that. I felt a little bit, because I sort of recommended it, and when she needed it, she wasn't able to use it. I don't know what the redress is.
Why? Was she given a reason?
Well,
they said there'd be nobody available.
first I've heard of it.
Yeah.
You know,
It was quite, you know, I mean, sort of, two of us then stepped in and actually took her down there. You know, because obviously it was important that she made that appointment. But I sort of like felt, wow, this is something which will really, really help you. And for this to happen, it was just quite disappointing, really.
I agree. I mean, as an organisation, they've been running transport for quite some time, and successfully over wide parts of the county. So, and they couldn't have been doing that for the time that they have unless they were able to do it properly. So, I don't know the specifics behind it.
Would it be worth contacting them to find out why?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if it's not of any benefit to us, we're not going to do it. Yes, Justin.
Not related. It's given the amount of revenue you have and the surplus, do you have a ceiling really for requests from parishioners for various projects, or is it everything's on its merits? So
Everything's on its merits.
okay.
It's as simple as that. The number of awards last year was fairly low, to be honest. We've already made more awards this year than we did last. So I expect that total to, when we have this conversation this time next year, I expect the total to be well down. But that's fine, as ever. Any request is viewed on its merits.
Good to know, thank you.
Thank you. Graham, and now if you want to give the report from the A14 working group and followed by the business basis. Yeah? Is that okay?
Yes, fine. Well, first of all, as you heard, Kieran would have loved to present this, but unfortunately he can't be with us. And there is a bit of duplication from what you've already heard, but the A14 working group is obviously part of or works on behalf of the Parish Council, so it's understandable that there will be some duplication. So if you've heard it before, bear with me, because there are some bits in here that will be used. So first of all, any parishioner who has registered as an interested party will have received a letter from the Planning Inspectorate outlining how they will go about reviewing the DCO application from Highways England. Now, that's a change. It was Highways Agency, it's now Highways England. It appears a lot of the same people are there, but it's a different name now. The examination process and the various deadlines and the meetings should all have been outlined in that letter. Hilton Parish Council is a registered interested party and has been introduced to the proceedings as the body representing the views and concerns of Hilton parishioners. That said, the PC urges all parishioners to have registered as an interested party to engage with the process. So if you've already registered, there is more work to be done. So we need you to attend the open meetings, submit written representations and speak out where possible. It isn't the end of the process, it's the start of it, I'm afraid. So we need to be vigilant and carry on. The whole process was kicked off on Wednesday the 13th, as you've already heard, at a preliminary meeting at Huntingdon, attended by a large number of people from the parish, including the PC working group. No evidence was heard, but there was an opportunity to raise concerns about the review process. Things like the availability of information, the quality, detailed design data, and the independence of the examination panel are examples of the subjects that were raised. All written representations should be submitted by Monday the 15th of June. The PC work group has completed a first draft of the written representation, 6,000 words. It's now available on the PC website. It's got a draft over it, several pages, 6,000 words is probably going to be about 15 pages or something. So hopefully that will help you to form your own representations. If anyone has suggestions as to how this could be improved, the work group would like to hear from you. As has been said earlier, there is an open floor meeting to be held in Hilton on the 13th of July. We heard that today, we're not too sure where. And that's an evening, we believe it's an evening. and the examining authority have called that meeting on the 13th of July. We assume that the examining authority have done this due to the high number of representations that you all made, so thank you for that. They're coming to Hilton as they are treating us as an issue-specific case. That's our belief. Full details will be made available when we get confirmation of the venue, but it's likely to be in the village hall, but we have no confirmation yet, so
Unless you haven't got that.
we will find out at some point. Again, this comes to this series of obstacles that we have to go through. The fact that you're registered is good, that means you get the information, but if you would like to speak at this meeting, then you'll need to notify the examining authority by Monday the 15th of June. So the fact that you're registered is a starting point. If you'd like to speak at that meeting, and you are encouraged to by the Parish Council, then you need to do some more registering. Again, as mentioned before, it's numbers that count. We have done a very good representation on the website, but if only a handful of people turn up, we probably will get discounted. So we need to have a big attendance. Even if you just sit there and subtly read a book or something, we need people at the meetings just to show that there is big concern. The rest of the examination authority timetable will be on the PC website. Hilton Parish Council has engaged with Highways England, Highways Agency, to produce a statement of common ground. This is a new idea. This document defines the areas which both parties agree and disagree. Issues such as how we continue to consult with each other about the design, the implications of the construction phase are all instances. A draft copy of this document, when it's complete, will be made available very shortly. Now there are examples that we have looked at, but we're in the process of looking at that with specific to the A14, where we can try and get some common ground, hopefully speed things up. The PC has recently employed the consulting services of an acoustic expert for an initial fact-finding session. Having taken further advice, this will most likely expand, subject to the PC ratifying the increased expenditure, into a larger block of work as we try to build a case for the further protection of Hilton from the effects of the new road. Please be assured that the PC will continue to keep parishioners up to speed with important information and dates through leaflet drops and the PC website. But again, as I said before, we urge parishioners to get involved. There is no doubt that numbers do help our case. So, in summary, there will be some more leaflet drops. They do get a bit expensive. We don't mind dishing them out, but they get expensive, so they won't be quite as glossy as some of the ones you've had. They'll probably be black and white A5s, but don't discount them when they come through, because our aim is to try and get them out quite close to the date by which you have to do it, so you don't sort of put it aside, you read it and you think, I've got to do it today or tomorrow. So we try and coordinate it to be out there on time. Apologise if you get fed up with these things to the door, but it's a short period, but we have to concentrate to try and get the best results. So that's the result from giving us a piece of paper.
There'll probably be one before the date of registration to remind you to get on and register, and then one before the date of the meeting to remind to come to the meeting.
I'm going to say it's worth mentioning that those that weren't able to be at the preliminary meeting last Wednesday, I have put a video of the whole meeting up on the website, 2 hours and 20 minutes, so you have some perseverance and lots of cups of coffee. But it's quite interesting to see the process and how many people from Hilton attended and spoke at that meeting. So do take a look.
Yeah, no evidence, all process. No, that was the whole thing of the meeting. Very strict along that way.
Where did you take?
I think it's full. Lots.
Here.
That was a very busy meeting. Graham?
I'm doing greens now.
Yes.
Right. Similarly, Kieran would like to present this, but he's not up to it. So, on behalf of Kieran and the working group. The working group, again, is a body that works on behalf of the Parish Council. So, a lot of it you've already heard before this evening, but there's an interesting bit at the end which you haven't, so hang on. All right. Hilton Parish Council has conducted a range of maintenance work across the village in the last 12 months. Many will have noticed the tree surgery undertaken late January. We are pleased to say that we are now well into clearing a backlog. Still more to do, but we did a big bite this year. The main drain and the town drain had the usual clearance. But we've also worked on the banks of the Wear. That was looking a bit untidy in Gravely Way, so some special work was done on that. And also cleared the outflow from Reeves Ditch. So there was a couple of extra bits that were new this year. All this work is done in addition to the contracts we have with John Carter, who's the main green man, and then we have Bernie Ashby, who goes around doing all the little bits and pieces that you don't necessarily notice until he doesn't do them, but you see a man in a yellow coat, Bernie. On behalf of the PC, we still want to thank those kind people who have already been thanked. Duncan, Andy Fennick, the new tree surgery man, Ian Stott, our very cheap tree warden and grass maintenance guy. So that's very kind of them. We've also had an active volunteer group this year doing out-and-about jobs, such as ivy cutting, and we did a bit of work on the green to sort out where the football had a bit of extra use. And I would just say clearing was significant because this year we got rid of probably about 8 years worth, and there was actually a skip, so it wasn't just forking, there was a skip that won't appear in the Parish Council funds, so that was got hold of, and I believe it was Mike that dug out an awful lot of muck, and we have had comments, it looks a lot nicer now, that pile's gone. Here's the new bit. We are aware that on the 10th of June there will be a film crew in the village who are working on a piece to celebrate the life of Capability Brown, 300 years next year, 2016. So the work group will be meeting shortly to discuss preparations for this event. No extra cost will be shown up on the Parish Council funds. But the general concern is to know where they want to film so that we can perhaps give a bit of a spruce up. I mean, I presume there'll be the maze, but there's the village garden, there's the ponds, there's the fields, view from Hilton. Who knows where they're going to be? Exactly. So they are coming in the 10th of June. Hopefully they'll let us know before then what they intend to film. And then we'll try and make sure that the village is looking at its best. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. So that concludes the talks at the meeting, and we now turn to general question time. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to raise?
I've got one, Peter. With regard to this capability brain thing, I wouldn't, due to the fact that we haven't really done anything for the Queen's Jubilee, we didn't do anything for the VE Day celebrations because of the lateness of stuff. I wouldn't want to see the village become involved in spending any money on commemorating Capability Brain, really. I think the Queen and VE Day were far more important, whatever the circumstances of that are. But I certainly wouldn't want to see the village's money spent on doing anything special for Capability Brain. Absolutely fantastic that they're going to spruce the village up and it's not going to cost us anything. You know, we want it to look good. But money is tight, and you've said that already. And I don't think it's probably worth what, my opinion, I don't think it's really worth
exactly.
thing to spend.
Yeah. Thank you for your comments. Yeah, Mark.
Just two things actually. One is, could the Parish Council think in terms of improving the speed at which the minutes come out onto the website? They're often several months late. I know we can see it on video, but we don't all want to sit for an hour and a half or whatever. But other villages do publish drafts, but very clearly stated as drafts, and that would be very helpful, perhaps even also to put them onto the notice boards, because not everybody has computers. And the second thing is, in the pavilion, I know there's no money, but the pavilion itself is quietly rotting. You know, it's going to be a ruin if you don't do something, or start to think of what we're going to do to it. So, you know, it would be helpful if we got a group of people.
We have recently, 2 months ago.
Yeah, 2 meetings.
Yeah, I know Kieran is leading a group to discuss it, but there's a lot of skill in the village. We can have a group that's concerned with raising money to do something to it. You have a plan that Patrick Landucci put together, which was expensive in terms of getting a company to do it, but the village could do it. I mean, we've got a wonderful green, and when this film crew comes along, that's going to be a blot on the landscape, and that cannot continue. So we have to do something quickly. Start raising money, you know, have a few quiz nights or something like that, and start raising money to get things moving, because it really is a sight at the moment. I hate looking at it, and I know a lot of other people do, so we have to drive that along.
Yeah, and it is being driven along, and what will happen,
Yeah.
Margaret, is that the group is working on what could be done, that presented to, with the cost implications of, and then decisions will be made as to what can be accommodated.
I think, if I may say so, I think the Parish Council needs to, I know you own it, but you need to let it go into the hands of the village rather than you lead it too strictly. Obviously, you need a Parish Councillor as part of the group, but you need to hand it over to the community so that we do it for you.
Yeah. Okay, Margaret, thank you for your views and comments.
Thank you.
Leslie, Andy?
No, let's go first. Ladies first.
Thank you very much. Just a quick word. I'm pleased that you flagged that there are repairs that need doing to the bridge across
Yeah, I
there.
noticed some the other evening.
Well, I've noticed it for quite some time, and I actually did mention it probably about 4 or 5 months ago. Because it's going to be a child's foot that ends up down there.
High heels, I thought.
Well,
When I was
whatever,
on the bridge.
but it is getting very, very dangerous, and I really do think that as Parish Council you need to attend to it as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Before there is an accident.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you.
Can I say that those bridges were put in by the County Council because these are County Council numbered footpaths that we have. Now, I just had a quick word with Ian, who hasn't got any money, I know that. He said, we think they actually paid, well they did pay for it, I was clerk at the time, and all the bridges, rows, were put in by the County Council. So I know it'll be a lot quicker for us to mend it, probably by about a year, but don't forget that they are actually responsible for these footpaths and the roads. So don't just waste your money.
There we are, Jan. There's a letter. Thank you, Peter.
If it's going to take that long, would it be an idea then to put some sort of notice on that bridge, just to tell people that it is a hazard, but you're on awareness of it?
Actually, I think Bernie did a temporary repair on it last year, but that's fallen in. So whether Bernie could do a temporary repair again.
I don't think he will, because we requested that he did something with the wooden edging along the path, and his immediate response was he wouldn't want to be responsible in case anybody had an accident.
So it was Andy next, Peter, was that right? Or did you have, was it expanding that bridge?
Sorry, say it again.
Sorry, it was Andy next. I thought you were going to say us.
No, I was going to a different subject.
Okay. Should we let Andy go?
Oh, yes, please.
Yes, he had his hand up first. And fair's fair.
Picking up on a comment made by Parish Council at the last meeting, I think asked of yourself and review of the meeting. How do you feel you've done as a Parish Council consulting with the village? I think the response was, well, they can turn up to meetings, and that's a sort of consultation. A bit like the comment I made to the PCC lady. You know, you need to be much more proactive in asking villagers as a whole what they want, because people like us that pitch up are a very, very small minority of the folks here. So it's a question of saying, how do you feel you've done in the last year, and what more do you think you could do to consult better with the villagers?
Yeah, I think, as I said in my little comment, as I reviewed what we've done in the last year, I think the Parish Council has done very well. As you say, we historically only get a small number of people come to the meetings. We publish the information of the meetings on the website. We publish an article in Spectrum. If people want to contact us, they're more than welcome to.
I think be more proactive. I mean, yes, anybody can contact, but actually going out and asking people is a much better way of getting and waiting for somebody to pitch up when it's either too late or they can be bothered.
That's a
Thank
similar,
you, Ian. I'll take that.
it's a similar thing to what I would have also said, but I thought 3 was probably too many. But there's a huge reliance on a whole month before the next Spectrum comes out, and the website. And I think, there's too much of a tendency nowadays to rely on the technology, and I think other people would much rather see something written more often in front of them.
Well, they get Spectrum free of charge through letterbox. Every house in that village gets that. But it's something we'll take your points on.
But a lot of people I know that don't bother to read the Spectrum, and that's why somehow the Parish Council has to find a way of
I think that's been the issue for every organisation in the village.
Yeah.
You can have a public meeting, you can have a film, you can have a Spectrum, you can put a newsletter through. But if people don't read them, you can't go in the house and force them to read
But
them.
at least if you do them, nobody can say, I don't know anything about it. You have to push
And we
this
do.
a bit more.
We have Spectrum goes through the door box, letterbox of every house in the village. The important issues that we see regarding A14, we do a leaflet drop to every letterbox, through every letterbox in the village.
I think over many years that we could have been doing better. I mean, when I was a councillor, I felt we could have done better, and I think we still could.
Margaret, I'll ask you then. Please
What?
send me how you think we could do it better, and we'll consider that.
All right then.
Yeah, I'll have it on
May not be straight away.
Okay, but think about it, because, because short of going and sitting in the front room of everybody, you won't get people do more than they want to do.
Okay.
I think Sharon would agree with that one. Feast week.
Yeah. It's
Continue
really
back
hard
to
work.
that.
I know it's really
Very
hard.
hard work to get feedback from people to judge what you're doing is what they want in the village.
Yes. You'll get, as Andy says, you'll get a small number of people who will come and be vocal, but you'll get a silent majority.
And it's usually
who
the
won't.
same people as well, isn't it? That's the worst of it. It's trying to bring in the people.
Use all channels is the answer. It's multimodal. As Sharon knows, you use Facebook. You've got to use them all, and you'll pick up some people on one and some on another. You can't rely on any one to do as many as you possibly can, and you'll get much better feedback. Okay. Peter.
Peter.
Yes, I apologise for arriving late. I've never known 7:30 look like 8 o'clock so long.
No one noticed you were late.
Nobody noticed I was late. Most of the
noticed you were late.
most people waved at me when I came in. I don't wish to start any detailed, antagonistic conversations about the famous beacon. But the beacon was bought with public money. Where is it? Because I've just heard rumours that it's in a ditch and other things. That's my money there. So I would like to know who is looking after it, and no discussion about when it goes up next. But it belongs to us, that beacon, and it is not to rot in a ditch. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Is anybody going to answer?
It's up at New Farm. It's up at New Farm. I think it's called New Farm. Is it New Cross Farm? Out on the left as you go past out of the village.
In the dry.
In a barn?
In the dry, undercover.
No, I believe it's not kept on in the dry undercover.
Without wanting to start it, do you think
you're not the video
still
camera
shut?
over in a minute?
Do you think that perhaps we should investigate getting it under cover, even if it's only putting plastic or wrapping some tarpaulin over it, because let's be to his sake, it did cost a lot of money, and it would be a crying shame for it to just rot away. So perhaps.
Thank you.
I can keep it in a shed if anybody wants. If anyone got the health and strength to put it there.
No, Alan Rule will bring his JCB and bring it over. So yeah.
Thank you, Andrew.
The inspector.
Right.
Well, I did watch the video when I can't come, and it is actually quite useful picking up, well, sometimes maybe nothing at all, sometimes it just depends. But I did watch the video at the last meeting, which I didn't come to, where there was some discussion about the green. And I think Kieran actually proposed some wording, which I think Anne Goodrich made some comments about. And I know you're still working on it, but if you just come back a little bit to who owns the beacon, well, who owns the green? We do. People in this room own the green. And picking up about the consultation, is it perhaps a very good suggestion that the Parish Council consults the village and the village organisations like fees, like football clubs, cricket clubs, etc., about what they see the future of the green and what happens on the green? Because I think actually you look after it as I looked after it, as other members who've been parish councillors like Margaret and Peter when he was clerk. You're looking after it on our behalf at the moment. I think actually what I heard on the video needs to be a much wider debate amongst the village, and I would suggest that when you're actually doing some leaflets, okay, you could do a double side and consult the village on what they see the use of the village that might be. It really just follows what I heard, and I would suggest that a consultation about that in the future would be extremely useful for the parish to engage in.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, and I heard
it. The point about the green is that its inception or its development in history is that it was an agricultural facility, and it's much less than that now since perhaps the First World War. It's much more of a recreational facility than an agricultural one, and that's what I think Ian is also emphasising, that it needs to be reviewed in a way that hasn't been done for the 39 years I've been here.
And the guidance from the inspectorate is to encourage its use for lots and lots of different reasons. And I worried me, I have to say, when somebody at that meeting said, we don't want people having their weddings on the green. Well, if they're a villager, then it's what a better place to have a wedding celebration. That's a good example.
I don't want to the debate. I don't think it's a debate for tonight. What I'm saying actually is I think it should be something that the parish... what is our biggest asset, apart from the pavilion? Your asset, should I say, or our asset. This village hall, I went to last night, I came to the village hall committee. We are very lucky. And I give perhaps another suggestion, bearing in mind a little bit of what both the county councils, district councils and public sector is actually what can you do? What can you do, villagers? We've heard about transport. I support the initiative and was very much involved in community transport. But I think actually we need to, and that's where the parish takes leadership. And the leadership actually is saying to the village, well, could you help do that? I know you've spoken about, people volunteering to cut the ivy and things like that, which is absolutely great, and the fireworks, great, and the feast week, great, people that come to the village hall and things. But I think actually we need to build that resilience within the village. So my second suggestion is consult on what people see the village green should be, and give them some guidance about the sort of questions and some feedback. But I think that would be a good step forward for the parish.
Thank you. Leslie.
I mean, I'll talk about the green as well, because as you know, I put in a request. Unfortunately, I was unable to come to the meeting because I wasn't well. I feel as though it wasn't seen fairly. It was a request for a dog show which we've held every 2 years, exactly the same rules. We were paying the licence, we were paying the insurance. Yes, we were going to support a charity, but also the village hall would have benefited as well. We would have, you know, we were, the whole organisation was to be fair and to split money between 2 charities. And now, from what I can glean, is that the Parish Council are not going to support an outside charity holding an event on the green.
No decision has been made on that. I'm not sure we got that from this. There's been
Well,
no
I think
decision
I
made
got
in
it
that
from an
respect.
impression that was given when you and Graham came to a meeting.
No, there's been nothing. There's been no decision.
So what you're saying then is that you would support something like that then?
I can't say anything because there's been no decision made. It hasn't been discussed at the Parish Council meeting yet.
Because you said, don't think, you just didn't ask to do
It was first...
Yeah, we're going back a year ago.
Yeah,
But we went to a meeting, you were talking about the meeting we came to at the village hall where you asked us to come up with a policy on use of the green.
Absolutely.
Well,
And we've
has
never
been
seen
agreed.
anything
Nothing's
since.
been agreed since.
Well, that's quite some time ago then, isn't it, since it was requested? September.
But I take your point.
We're now
I
talking
take-
sort of May, Peter. That's you know, that's quite a few months ago, but nobody's actually come up with what, you know, you can do and what we can't do on our village green, which is owned by the villagers, and the Parish Council is custody.
And we're spending a great deal of you're having to spend a great deal of money to keep it safe, looking good and everything. So we need to be able to use it more.
I think before I resigned that we'd received an insert into the use of the village green, item 4 I think it was, and we were going to amend the paragraph that mentioned about holding outside
Yes.
events on the green, and that wasn't going to be allowed.
Hasn't been agreed. Hasn't been, it was put back at the last meeting for further discussion.
And that, Peter, is why I'm suggesting it needs a wider debate. I think the time is right for a wider debate on what is being suggested. And I would encourage you to go down that route. Before agreeing anything, do consultation. It is our biggest asset, which we all love and cherish. But I do think we need to see the views about what other people think within the village.
Yeah, because
Absolutely
one of the
essential.
things that we heard from Phil earlier on is that the town trust does things principally for the benefit of Hilton.
Yeah.
And the parish council, as far as I can see over the years, has always done things to allow permission for activities to be held on the green that are principally for the benefit of Hilton.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be such a bad lead to follow, but obviously that has to come to the parish council meeting and be discussed. Andy?
Change of subject. The trees along St Ives Road that were cut down in the last month, were the Parish Council informed that that was going to happen? And secondly, from our tree warden here, surely this is in prime bird nesting season that they're all cut down, and there were about 22 very large mature trees and hedgerows. Were we at all even informed, or did it just happen?
No, well, I've got an update. No, we weren't informed. I have sent an email asking about it, and for 2 reasons. One, was it in a conservation area? And secondly, about the time of year. The email I got in response was that they had sought permission to do it. I then had an email I was copied into that was sent by Lisa Millard, who was obviously very upset about it, and I've heard things from parishioners, and I have had a response to that, saying it was all above board and that they've been consulted and the trees were looked at before it happened. I haven't sent that email out to councillors yet because it's only come in the last couple of days.
Why have they been cut down?
But who did they consult?
Planning.
Yeah.
Oh, planning,
Wait,
all
yeah,
right.
sorry,
Yeah.
the emails from the tree. Tree.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry?
Was it pre-consulted or just afterwards?
I think it was pre-consulted, but the email I got copied into that Lisa had sent was much more detailed and yes, so it has upset a lot of villagers.
Yeah, no, we have written to HCC because of the comments we were getting, but, and there was, obviously replies are coming.
Apparently they're going to put a new hedgerow in there. It was taken out because there was rot and
Well, yeah, all they're going to do is put a sheep fence in. That's what they're apparently going to do. Put a sheep fence in, stop the sheep from getting out. But they're going to just let it go back as it was before.
I've just heard, what I've been told is that they're going to replant.
Be interested to see if that happens.
Is that land within the parish then, or is it outside?
It's in the parish. It's in the parish. The parish goes all the way as far as St Ives.
Some of it's in the
Is it in the
conservation
ownership
area.
of the fields, or is it in the, is it highways or whatever?
It's the field.
I think
It's a
the
local
owner.
landowner.
It's the land.
owners, yeah.
So it's within his.
It's recently changed hands as well, hasn't it?
I believe the term copyist was used.
What?
Yes, that's what they said the trees have been
I don't think so.
Did the tree officer come out and have a look and see what's been
I'm
done?
not I don't know. I know that photographs have been sent to
Oh, okay.
The district council hasn't got a tree officer anymore,
All right.
so
Yeah.
no, it's somewhere within the planning. But the overworked planners, I have been told, the people who, if you had a tree problem in this village or a question, there is no arboreal or arboricultural officer in the district council anymore. It'll go to somebody in the planning department and you'll have to wait a long time for an answer.
I have had some answers back regarding it, but
Too late though, when the trees
Yeah,
are on the
they're
ground.
down.
Can't put it back up.
So the answer to the question is we were not approached,
No.
asked beforehand. We have inquired subsequent, and as I said, the word copyist came up in the reply.
I'd just add that in actual fact alongside of that ditch, about 35-40 metres from this end, there's actually quite a large badger set as
Yeah.
well.
I walk past
one
it.
of the only three I'm aware of within the village.
Yeah, I walk past it every day, and it's very active in the ditch there.
still.
Yeah, yeah, it's still there. They're still.
I've got a badger set, sir.
Okay.
Is that number 4? The badger set's been there for years.
Yeah.
Oh yes, oh yeah.
I just wondered if it's been disturbed
If nobody else has got a question, I want to hog the questions. Has anybody else got a question? I'll ask one quick one. To do with the green again. What's the parish council's policy on residents mowing the green? I thought there was a lot of debate about what we could and couldn't cut on the green, and certainly things like paths and the like. But there are significant areas of the green that are cut to within an inch of their life, very thin. Is that with the permission of the parish council, or is that?
I don't know the answer to that question, Andy. I'll find out.
If you could do 2 or 3 areas that are really finely cut, like bowling greens, and that's not very much what a green is.
No, I don't know the answer. I know that there's areas that have been cut. They've been in the village 19 years, they've been cut.
Yeah, but there's no good reason to carry on doing it if it's against the rules.
Well, I'll find out.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else got any questions?
So can I just say, as a question, I'd just like to thank you as chairman, and on behalf of Feast Week Committee, we'd like to thank all the parish councillors and Joe for taking it on last year and I think doing a pretty good job actually. I think, you've had a tough year, you've achieved a lot in that last year, which you've just said, and I think you've done a great job actually. And Feast Week feel very well supported, because obviously we have to ask permission for during the Police Week event. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for doing a great job.
Here,
Thank you, Sharon.
here.
Ladies and gentlemen, no further questions. Then we'll close the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.